I told you it all starts with you, in the mind of the CEO. Leadership is action, not position. Ready to commit, to return. Well, we know that. Action for action's sake. Now, this is the kind of manager and leader I was. Churchill described by one, he did action for action's sake. Churchill hired vindictive, unscrupulous, ruthless men if they were also effective. A man at the top must continually drive the vast machine forward at its utmost speed. To lose momentum is not merely to stop, but to fail. Again, Churchill had unbound optimism, which was the source of his courage, and let him overcome it cannot be done attitude that plagues most human organizations. It is a crime to despair, he had written after the disastrous Munich Agreement by Neville Chamberlain. Churchill's candor was a manifestation of his confidence in himself. He seldom had regrets about any position he had taken. Sound familiar? He once remarked, "In the course of my life, I have often had to eat my words, and I must confess that I have always found it a wholesome diet." In this Long Island, Britain, stories to end at last. This is when they were losing the war. Let it end only when each of us lies choking in his blood upon the ground. This success leaves clues, guys. I mean, he was ruthless. He was fucking ruthless. Churchill. We must learn from misfortune the means of the future strength. Again, and then there's other guys that Steven Spielberg was said he makes 6 decisions every 10 seconds and never looks back. Utter confidence. Okay, now do you understand the breakdown of the board, the percentages, the outside accountants and lawyers don't get stock. If your in-house lawyer on the board wants you to use his firm, the answer is almost always no, because there's an inherent conflict. When you use smaller law firms that say they are the ones that sometimes can have stock given to their firm, but that's not the kind of firm you want. You want the big firms that have international exposure, and they normally cost per hour 30 to 50% more than the mid-sized firms. And they may even cost 200 or 300% more than the smaller firms. But you get what you pay for. I've never been disappointed in the big firm representation. Remember, when I had Freshfields, back when I first came here, not first came here, the second time I came here, Freshfields, the managing partner, number one on the note paper, as they say in this country. We act for the Queen of England, the Bank of England, the Church of England, and Dan Penna. I mean, that was it. That was normally and everybody in the UK and Europe knew that. And then Dryhold Dyke, the founder of the North Sea, former governor of New York, who saved New York from bankruptcy, it just all works. But it's still going to depend on your leadership. Your leadership. And it begins and ends with the founder, which is you. And the current titles that are being utilized by the QLA kids are founder, principal. Some of them take the more formal title of director of business development. I don't particularly like that. I'd rather just have the founder stroke principal, because that says it all. And you heard Josh when he gave his role play. That's how he introduces himself. And all he's done is our team has financed this many deals, and now he says, I have financed in the last year. Okay, so he brings it down to him, which is true. And just like when we heard Peter, he now says, we have, when the 5th deal closes here in a couple of weeks, this year, and that's powerful when you say this year we've closed these deals. And now his executive summary has changed. He's got 200 doctors, 300 or 400 employees, whatever it is, over 5 hospitals. And if he is the largest hospital owner in the country, which I believe he is, he should put it. And as you do deal after deal after deal, your credibility continues to grow, but you're reminding them with your executive summary. You continue to remind them, And when you update your executive summary, you send a copy to your accountants. You send a copy to your lawyers, in addition to your board, and to the banks. And you remind the banks that said no to you. You don't tell them like, you fucking meatheads, you should have got in on the, you missed the gravy train, asshole. I'm accused of saying some of those things. I know it's hard for you to believe that I would treat a professional banker that way. But you remind them, and then, you've got finance running out your ears, and there's no trouble. Nothing's easy, but it certainly is easier. And the QLA model is the only game in town where you don't have to have any money to start. And for those of you that have some money, it just, it makes it that much easier. Okay. Any questions about the Dream Team, the percentages? Yes, sir.
You had mentioned earlier that the percentages, some people give them to for the holding company, but some don't.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're, no, the percentage to the board, if you have a holding company, the directors aren't interested in owning part of a subsidiary. The directors are interested in ownership in the holding company, okay? The employees of the subsidiaries get based on their performance in the subsidiary. Sometimes you'll have a subsidiary make an acquisition, okay, that really has no reflection other than it adds to the total balance sheet of the holding company, and that's when they get in the subsidiary.
Is that in the template when to do that?
Pardon?
Is that in the templates when to offer that?
No, it's not. I don't. If it's in the templates, I don't really recall. I don't remember all 200 templates. But when the board will say, will tell you, believe me, the board doesn't want to be diluted at the holding company level. They'll be the first to tell you, what the fuck are you giving? I mean, this is some little $2 million, you're a $100 million holding company. You're giving this asshole at a $2 million subsidiary you just bought. What are you giving him anything in the holding company for? What are you diluting me for? This jerk. Don't worry. They'll tell you. The lawyers and in-house lawyers and accountants will tell you.
Yeah, I hear everybody asking the same question, and you keep forgetting one thing that finally dawned on me. That's why you have a board. You have a lawyer and an accountant that knows shit that you don't know.
Correct.
It's okay that you don't know. That's why you don't need the answers to the questions right now. If you just take the step, you'll get advice. You'll learn it as you go.
Yeah, and in some cases you'll get more advice than you want. And then but the in-house lawyer, the in-house accountant, and the CFO and the CEO, if you're not the CEO, will say, and I'll tell you on your weekly report, what does PricewaterhouseCoopers say? What does Baker McKenzie say? So even after your board tells you, I want to know what the accountants and the lawyers say. And, most of the time they'll all be in sync. But sometimes, and I don't want to scare anybody, but if the board is setting you up for failure, they could give you one bit of advice, and then when you ask the lawyers and the accountants, are you sure you understood the board correctly? They won't say that they're getting ready to cut your head off, but, and if the accountants and lawyers say, are you sure you understood them correctly, that's a red flag, okay? And it normally happens in the Netherlands. Normally, that's why the Hall of Shame's got a lot of Dutchmen up there. We should put orange on them. Now that I think of this, but that's why you have the board, because they're going to tell you. And believe me, no board member worth his salt with 20 years experience is going to allow you to think that they should be diluted. They'll say, you don't want to be diluted for this deal. That's what they'll say. What they're really saying is, I don't want to be diluted. This jerk-off deal. It was all right that we bought the piece of shit, but not to dilute me.
But we've got checks and balances, too, because you've got board members and accountants and lawyers.
Correct.
And our weekly report. So if you're intelligent...
Yeah, well, that was the operative word there. If you're intelligent. Okay. I don't call you meatheads just because I came up with the terminology, pulled it out of the sky. I mean, no. But for the next year, I mean, I will tell you, and normally when you get in trouble, even after the mentorship's over, free mentorship is over, they're doing this, Dan, is this right or wrong? And I'll still tell you, I haven't had time. I emailed them back. I don't have time to read your email now. I'm devoting 100% of my time to the seminar. And then he wrote back to Kim, I should have looked to see when he was seminar, but, if you could answer my question. Fucking question's this long, And the emails, when they're that long, it's not because thank you very much. That's not a thank you email, okay? He's bringing me up to speed of what the fuck happened so I can make an intelligence assessment of, where he is. And normally, you send me the emails too late. Because you didn't want to think that you were getting fucked. Or in some cases, I told you what was going to happen. I'm only 95% right. And I know you want to think that, really I'm 99.5% right, but the lawyers tell me I can only say I'm 95% right. And you didn't want Dan to think that you are the meathead. But I mean, one of the most successful guys in the last 20 years said, I'm one of the meatheads, But the meatheads that listen, I can pull across the goal line. Push, punch, drag. It's the guys that think that they're intelligent, as you said, the operative word. There was a question? Yes, sir.
So when you have a good accountant on the board, like a big four, I just heard you say that you need a CFO on the board as well. It sounds like a good...
No, it's not, because the accountant... There's a difference between being a CFO and being a transaction accountant. There's a big difference. And the accountant you want on the board is normally not a tax guy. You want a transaction guy. You want a guy that has performed due diligence transactions from the bottom to the top. He understands. Your CFO might have come out of some other section. But I mean, you want, and again, you want to be able to bounce. One guy may be Deloitte, one guy may be KPMG, and you want them to be able to bounce off each other. And once you're doing deals and they're talking to each other, in the beginning, I don't want them talking to each other. But after you've got a cohesive team and they're talking to each other, and unless you're the CEO. They're going to be talking to the CEO and the CFO, the other directors, more than you. You're going to be taking the CFO to bank meetings. You're going to be taking an industry expert to acquisition candidates meetings. And when you get bigger deals, you drag out your anchor chairman for prestige. And, he doesn't have to be there the whole time. You don't want to tire him out. I don't get tired out, but most guys close to my age, don't want to go that many meetings. We've got a couple guys that have real champions as chairman. They like it. They like to be in the hunt again. And although we had a chairman that begged off a meeting because Notre Dame, he's a Notre Dame guy. Notre Dame was playing, I forget who. And so the kid changed the meeting. I said, you should bring him, change the meeting so he doesn't miss his note. I don't do that very often, but he's a big Notre Dame alumni. He says, change the meeting so he can make sure. Because when you tell him the chairman's coming and then he doesn't show up, that's a red flag for them. That's a red flag. The kid's flapping his mouth here and now the guy doesn't even show up. So, when you tell them they're going to come, we had a guy, a CFO, they set up, I might have told you, set up 5 meetings someplace, and the CFO forgot about it. Next. Set up 5 bank meetings, CFO don't show up. Next. Finito. And then, of course, the CFO left, and the CFO brought this guy on board, and that's what you start thinking. And 2 of the banks, forget about it. Next. If it's not important enough, that he didn't show up for the 5 bank meetings. And, of course, the guy, the U in the deal was scared like a whore in church. He's breathing through his rectum, and he had just graduated from the practice meetings to the big banks. It never happens when you want it to happen. And so, but I said, better you blow the guy out now. And then, and you don't text him. You know. I know I'm not interested in the reason why you're not there, weren't there, but you're through. If I don't get your resignation in 48 hours, I'll send you your resignation, and that's it. The short conversation. There's no reason for that. He didn't call and say, I'm going to be late. He didn't call. I just remembered. He just didn't show up. You had a question?
Yeah, so normally you want people that are closer so you can go see them, but if you have big heavy hitters that are...
Well, I mean, then we have people flying on their own dime. As Deb said, one of his directors flew from London to Singapore to meet because this is for the interview, to be on the board because it was important enough. And, you know, when his $1 billion acquisition scheme is, that's a good word here, program is completed, this guy who might have 2%, 2% of $1 billion is, you know, not a lot of money, but it's not chump change to you high rollers that you are. Yeah.
I just remember from yesterday from the Steve Ballmer interview, he just casually mentioned that he owns 4% of Microsoft.
Yeah, casually.
Casually.
And okay, how big is Microsoft?
80 billion knows.
Okay, no, I mean in market cap.
It's like several hundred billion.
Okay, call it 500 billion. Now he does, yeah. Yeah, and the casually mentioned. Yeah, you casually mentioned that you went to Starbucks. I couldn't have a choke on that. Anything else about who's my six?
Right.
6:30.
Here.
Okay, and tonight we're back in the castle for dinner. I believe drinks at 7. Dinner at 7:30. You've got your affirmations and your goals tonight, and you're going to see Kleinfeld tonight, which will be an interesting comparison to everybody else. And he stood right about there. And like these other kids, you know, I was instrumental in his success. I think that's an understatement. But the longer this it is from my training, the less impact. I used to see Dan, but anyway. I was fairly instrumental in his success. And again, congratulations, Rick, Senator-elect. And but I never was any doubt in my mind. And seeing these kids be successful, you know, is it makes it worthwhile putting up with the meatheads. Not monetarily, it doesn't, but I mean it certainly. If there's an afterlife, and if Allah takes care of me, like I know He will, yes. I mean, then it's all worthwhile. Any other questions for anything? Okay, guys, we'll see you tonight at dinner. Thank you. Good night, YouTube.